Shani Suber, Dean of Instruction and Online Learning at Brookhaven. In this video, I'm going to show you what accessibility checkers are and how to use them to easily scan some common forms of digital materials for accessibility issues. I hope this will be a real time and energy saver when it comes to making your content more accessible. Accessibility checkers are tools that you can use on digital materials like documents, presentations, PDFs, emails, and even eCampus. They scan your materials and then show a report with the location of any accessibility issues. They also usually provide a short explanation of why and how to fix those issues. Of course, these are automated tools, so they can't replace a manual check by a knowledgeable person. Think of it like running a spelling and grammar check. Sometimes the computer misses things that a human reader would notice, or flags issues that a person would understand aren't really problems. That's why we also need to manually review our materials for issues when it comes to both spelling and accessibility. Just like using a spell checker, running an accessibility check before sharing your materials is a great habit to get into. It will help you catch a number of issues and will help you create materials that are more readable, more accessible, and more effective for all members of your audience. Also, according to DCCCD's accessibility policy, all digital materials that are shared with students, employees, or the general public must be accessible. Accessibility checkers will make it much easier to identify and correct any issues so that you can meet this requirement. Before we dive into the technical details, I just want to let you know that it's a good idea to have the newest versions of the software we'll be looking at in this video. For example, if your version of Microsoft Office is old enough, it might not even have an accessibility checker. Also, in general, the best accessibility features are in the newest versions of software, and having access to them will make it easier to revise your materials. Now, usually, getting the latest and greatest of everything would be a pricey proposition, but in this case, you can get all the paid software I'm going to mention for free through district licenses. To install the latest versions of Microsoft Office and Adobe Acrobat Pro on your personal computer, go to dcccd.sharepoint.com/sites/employee tools and select Discounts. Then scroll down the page to find the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription and Microsoft Home Use Program information. There you'll find instructions about how to get this software for free. If you need to update the software on your college-owned computer, it's even easier. Just contact your campus IT office and they'll take care of it for you. Now that you know how to access some of the tools, we're ready to get started on those technical details. Let's begin by looking at the accessibility checker in Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint. The first steps in running an accessibility check in Word or PowerPoint will vary depending on whether you're on a Windows or a Mac computer and how old your version of Word is. On a Mac, and in newer versions of Office on a Windows computer, simply go to the Review tab on the ribbon and select the Check Accessibility button. The Accessibility Checker results will display on the right side of your screen. If your version of Office is older and doesn't have the Check Accessibility option in the Review tab, you just need to access the checker in a slightly different way. Go to the File tab on the ribbon and then select Info. Next, click the Check for Issues button. Then, from the drop-down menu, select the Check Accessibility option. The results will open on the right side of your screen just like they do in the newer versions of Word. The Accessibility Checker results will be divided into 3 categories. The most serious category is errors. An error indicates content that is difficult or even impossible for people with disabilities to read and understand, especially if they rely on screen reading programs. Warnings indicate content that's difficult for people with disabilities to understand in most, but not all cases. Finally, tips identify content that people with disabilities can understand, but that could be presented in a different way to improve the user experience. Within each category, issues will be separated by type. To view the specific content the accessibility checker has flagged, just click an item in the inspection results list. Office will display the part of the document or PowerPoint where the issue is located, and the content itself will be selected so that you can easily make changes. If you're not sure what the issue is or how to fix it, the accessibility checker can help with that as well. When you select any issue listed in the checker results, the bottom of the checker panel will update to display information about why that issue might cause problems for some users. Beneath that explanation, you'll find technical steps for fixing the issue. One of the most important things to remember about all accessibility checkers is that they can alert you to issues. But you still need to take the necessary steps to correct those issues. So, don't forget to fix as well as check your files. As you correct the accessibility issues, you'll see that they disappear from the checker results list. And if you fix all the issues, the checker will display a No Accessibility Issues Found message. Be aware, though, that there may be some issues that you won't be able to remove from the list. For example, reading order for tables is a common issue to see in your checker results. You'll need to manually tab through the table cells to ensure that the reading order is correct. But there's no way to mark this manual check as complete. So, once you've completed a manual check, you'll just need to ignore the warning in the accessibility checker for that item. In addition to your Microsoft Office files, you can also use an accessibility checker on your emails in Microsoft Outlook. The only substantial difference from what I just showed you is where the checker is located. If you're using the desktop version of Outlook on a Windows computer, select the Message tab while writing your email. Then click Check Accessibility. On the desktop version for Mac, go to Edit in the Outlook menu while you're writing an email. Then choose Check Accessibility. If you're using the browser-based version of Outlook, click the triple dot icon at the bottom of the email you're writing. Then choose Check for Accessibility Issues from the Options menu. If you sometimes use G Suite apps like Google Docs and Google Slides rather than Microsoft Office, they do not come with accessibility checkers built in. However, you can install an accessibility checker as a free add-on. To install the free version of the Grackle Docs or Grackle Slides accessibility checkers, open any Docs or Slides file and click Add-ons in the menu. Then select Get Add-ons. Search for Grackle Docs if you're in a Google Doc file and Grackle Slides if you're in a Google Slides presentation. Then select the relevant Grackle add-on and install it. You will only have to do this once, and the add-on will be available in all files of this type in G Suite. If you're not a fan of add-ons, no problem. You can always just download your Google files as their Microsoft Office equivalents by going to the File menu, choosing Download, and then selecting an Office file type. Then you can use the Microsoft Accessibility Checker instead to finish revising your files. If you do install Grackle, you can quickly run an accessibility check by clicking Add-ons in the menu of a Doc or Slides file. Then select the Grackle add-on from the list of options and select Launch. A results panel will open on the right side of the screen. To learn more about how to use the Grackle accessibility checkers in Google Docs and Slides, see the tutorials on the Accessibility Checkers page of the DCCCD checklist. If you thought it was helpful to be able to check individual files for accessibility, you'll really enjoy Ally, the accessibility checker that was added to eCampus in September 2019. With Ally, you can check an entire course. Ally works by automatically checking for accessibility issues in eCampus. It then adds indicator icons beside content items in the course, as well as creating a summary report to help the instructor identify priorities for revision. Like the other accessibility checkers we've looked at, Ally identifies issues but can't automatically fix them for you. It will, however, provide guidance on how you can fix the issues it finds. If you have a course in eCampus, you've probably noticed the Ally indicators. They're little dial icons that appear beside your content items, and both their color and the location of the needle on the dial indicate how accessible an item is. A red dial with the needle pointing to the far left means something is not accessible and needs immediate attention. An orange dial with the needle in the center indicates the content is only somewhat accessible and still needs improvement. The light green dial with the needle pointing to the right means the content is mostly accessible, but could be improved. And the dark green dial with the needle pointing to the far right means the content is fully accessible. Rest assured, students cannot see these dial icons, but instructors can click them to access guidance on what an issue is and how to fix it. Of course, it would take quite a while to go through a course page by page, clicking every indicator icon, which is why Ally also provides a summary report you can use to access all the issues and guidance from one central location. To open the summary report, go to your Control panel and expand Course Tools. Then select Accessibility Report. The report shows your overall score and how much content you have in your course. It also gives you a way to jump right to the easiest issues to fix, or to the lowest scoring content and the most severe issues. In my experience, using this overview can be very helpful when it comes to getting the big picture and planning where to start with your course revisions. Finally, let's take a look at Adobe Acrobat Pro. The paid version, available for free through DCCCD, has an accessibility checker tool to help you identify issues in your PDF files. To access the accessibility checker, open a file in Adobe Acrobat Pro and go to the Tools tab at the upper left. Scroll down the list of tools and choose Accessibility. The Accessibility panel will open on the right side of your screen. Select Full Check from the Accessibility panel and the Accessibility Checker options will open. You can leave all the default settings as they are and just click Start Checking. After the check is complete, the results are displayed in the Accessibility Checker panel on the left side of the screen. Each item on the list will be marked as passed, failed, skipped by user, or needs manual check. For items that failed or that need a manual check, you can use the Accessibility Checker panel to access further information about the issue and how to correct it. However, please be aware that revising a PDF to make it accessible can be very time-consuming, and the training required to learn how to do it goes far beyond the scope of this Accessibility 101 video series. Until you're comfortable editing PDFs to make them accessible, it's a good idea to create your content in Word and make sure the document is accessible before exporting to PDF. Then, if you can't resolve some of the accessibility issues with your PDF, you can share both the PDF and the accessible Word document to ensure all members of your audience can access the content. You should also avoid using scanned PDF files, especially low-quality scans. Acrobat won't be able to read the text of a low-quality scan in order to check it. More importantly, PDFs with text that Adobe can't read will also be unreadable to assistive technology, like screen readers. Speaking of cans and can'ts, let's close out by recapping what accessibility checkers can and can't do to help us create more effective materials. First, accessibility checkers are great tools for helping you identify issues that would make it difficult for people with disabilities to understand your content. However, accessibility checkers just identify issues. They can't automatically fix them for you. So, you'll need to put in the time and effort to resolve the issues that an accessibility checker finds. This is especially true because there are some things that a computer just can't check effectively. So there are times when you'll need to use your superior human reading skills to perform a manual check. But once you've checked your materials and resolved the accessibility issues, I think you'll often find that you've created content that's not just more accessible for people with disabilities, but also more readable for all members of your audience. To learn more tips for creating accessible materials, visit DCCCD's full accessibility checklist at dccd.edu/accessibility checklist. The checklist includes accessibility checkers, but it also covers 9 other best practices that will help make your materials accessible to people with disabilities and more effective for everyone. You can also access the links to resources that I've mentioned by viewing this PowerPoint online. Just use the short link dcccd.edu/A11Y-15 to access this presentation, as well as all the others in the 15-minute accessibility video series. Thanks so much for watching!